The Galactic Council had gathered in the Great Hall of Prime, the ancient station floating at the center of known space. Representatives from 12,000 civilizations sat in their designated seats, their forms ranging from crystalline beings of pure energy to massive organic creatures that breathed methane. They had come together for one purpose, and that purpose was the complete and final elimination of humanity. Admiral Eth of the Empire stood at the central podium, his four eyes scanning the massive chamber. His scaled skin reflected the dim purple lights as he spoke with absolute confidence. The had conquered over 300 star systems, and they considered themselves the true masters of warfare. Eth had personally led the destruction of 17 intelligent species, and he saw humans as nothing more than another entry in his long list of victories. "The humans have refused our final ultimatum," Eth announced, his voice echoing through the translation systems. "They will not surrender their 12 colony worlds. They will not submit to slavery. They believe they can resist the combined might of the Galactic Council." Laughter rippled through the chamber. The idea was absurd to them. Humanity had only achieved faster than light travel 300 years ago. They were infants compared to civilizations that had ruled the stars for millions of years. The Alone commanded a fleet of 50,000 warships. The combined forces of the Council numbered over 2 million vessels, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets like eggs. The ambassador, a being of living shadow that absorbed light itself, drifted forward. "Let us end this quickly. My people grow hungry, and human souls taste particularly sweet when filled with fear." Eth nodded in agreement. He had already positioned his armada around Earth, the human. 300,000 ships formed a sphere of death around the small blue planet. The humans had only managed to assemble a pitiful defense fleet of 8,000 vessels, and most of those were outdated designs held together with prayer and stubbornness. "Begin the attack," Eth commanded. The armada opened fire. Plasma lances that burned hotter than stars streaked toward Earth. Gravity bombs designed to tear apart the fabric of space itself were launched by the thousands. Antimatter torpedoes capable of vaporizing continents raced toward their targets. The combined firepower was enough to destroy 100 worlds. And then something impossible happened. The attack stopped, not slowed, not deflected. They simply ceased to exist, swallowed by darkness that appeared from nowhere. Eth watched his tactical displays with growing horror as every single weapon simply vanished into nothing. "What is happening?" he demanded, but his officers had no answers. The space around Earth began to change. Reality itself seemed to shiver and crack, like ice forming on the surface of a pond. From those cracks emerged ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. They were made of something that hurt to look at, something that existed between existence and void. They were constructed from dark matter, the invisible substance that made up most of the universe, and they had been hiding in plain sight for centuries. The dark matter fleet of humanity had finally revealed itself. Ambassador Wei stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Shadow, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched the enemy armada freeze in apparent shock. She was 70 years old, but the advanced human medical technology kept her looking no older than 40. Her grandmother had been one of the original scientists who discovered how to manipulate dark matter, and 3 generations of her family had dedicated their lives to building this fleet. "Open a channel to all council frequencies," she commanded calmly. When she spoke, every being in the Galactic Council heard her voice. "This is Ambassador Wei of the United Human Federation. You have made a terrible mistake. You looked at our small defense fleet and saw weakness. You looked at our young civilization and saw prey. You never stopped to wonder why a species as creative as humanity would show you everything we had. You never asked what we might be hiding." Eth was screaming orders at his crew, demanding that they fire again, but the weapons would not respond. The dark matter ships had somehow taken control of every system on every vessel. Engines failed. Life support flickered. Weapons went cold. 300,000 warships were now nothing more than metal coffins drifting in the void. We discovered dark matter manipulation 200 years ago, Ambassador continued. We built our first dark matter ship 150 years ago. For over a century, we have been constructing a fleet in the spaces between spaces, in the darkness that your sensors could never detect. We let you see our conventional ships because we wanted you to underestimate us. We played the role of the frightened young species because we wanted to see which civilizations in this galaxy had honor and which had only hunger. In the council chamber on Prime, panic was spreading. The ambassador tried to flee, but the shadows that made up its body suddenly refused to obey. Something was holding it in place. Something was holding all of them in place. Ambassador's voice grew colder. You failed the test. Every civilization that voted to destroy humanity, every empire that sent ships to murder our children, every council member that laughed at the idea of human survival, you have all shown us what you truly are. And now you will learn what we truly are. The dark matter fleet began to move. From the hidden dimensions where they had waited for so long, ship after ship emerged into normal space. The council's sensors tried to count them but could not keep up. 10,000 ships became 100,000. 100,000 became 1,000,000. The humans had not built a fleet. They had built an armada that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each dark matter ship operated according to principles that other species could not comprehend. They could become intangible, passing through solid matter like ghosts. They could absorb any energy directed at them, feeding on the weapons of their enemies. They could manipulate gravity itself, creating black holes or pushing stars out of their orbits. They existed partially outside of normal spacetime, making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. We could destroy you all, Ambassador said simply. Right now, at this moment, we could wipe every hostile civilization from existence. We have that power. We have had that power for decades. Eth felt true fear for the first time in his long life. He had destroyed species without mercy. He had ordered the deaths of billions without losing sleep. Now he understood what it felt like to be on the other side of absolute power. But that is not who we are, Ambassador continued, and her voice softened slightly. Humanity does not seek revenge. We do not desire conquest. We built this fleet because we knew this day would come. We knew that eventually the older civilizations would see us as a threat and try to eliminate us. We prepared not because we wanted war, but because we wanted to survive. The dark matter ships took position around every council member simultaneously. The logistics were impossible by any known science, but the humans had transcended known science long ago. Every species that had voted for humanity's destruction now saw the shadow of human vessels blocking out their suns. Here is what will happen now, Ambassador declared. You will disband your war fleets. You will release all slave species under your control. You will sign treaties guaranteeing the rights of every sentient being in the galaxy. You will never again unite to destroy a younger species simply because they might one day challenge your dominance. The Emperor himself appeared on the communication channels, his ancient face twisted with rage. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy. You are one species against thousands. Ambassador smiled slightly. One species with the power to end all of you. One species that has chosen mercy instead of murder. One species that is offering you a chance to become something better than what you are. I suggest you take that offer, Emperor. The alternative is not something anyone wants. The dark matter ships demonstrated their power with a single coordinated action. Every hostile warship in the galaxy suddenly found itself moved to a single point in empty space, far from any star system. 2,000,000 vessels, the combined military might of 12,000 civilizations, were gathered together and left stranded without functional engines or weapons. They would drift there until they agreed to the human terms. No one had died. That was the most terrifying part. Humanity had shown absolute power and absolute restraint simultaneously. They had proven they could destroy everything, and they had chosen not to destroy anything. In the following weeks, the galaxy transformed. Slave species were freed by the billions. War fleets were dismantled. Ancient empires that had ruled through fear suddenly found themselves forced to rule through cooperation. The humans did not take control of the galaxy. They simply ensured that no one else could abuse that control anymore. Ambassador returned to Earth as a hero, but she did not seek celebration. She spent her remaining years working on the next phase of humanity's plan. The dark matter fleet would continue to grow, continue to watch, and continue to protect not just humanity but every species that needed protection. Other civilizations slowly came to understand what humanity truly represented. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were guardians. They had hidden their true power not out of fear, but out of wisdom. They had known that revealing the fleet too early would have started wars that would have cost countless lives. They had waited until the perfect moment when one demonstration of power could prevent centuries of conflict. The Galactic Council was reformed with human oversight. Young species were now protected by law. The strong could no longer prey upon the weak without facing consequences. The galaxy had frozen in fear at humanity's emergence, but that fear slowly transformed into something else. Respect. The dark matter fleet remained vigilant in the hidden spaces between stars, watching and waiting. Humanity hoped they would never need to use their full power again. They hoped that the galaxy had learned its lesson. But if that lesson was ever forgotten, if any species ever again tried to destroy those weaker than themselves, the dark matter fleet would emerge once more. And the galaxy would remember why humanity was not to be underestimated. The universe had many ancient species, many powerful empires, many civilizations that counted their history in millions of years, but none of them had ever done what humanity had done. None of them had built a weapon capable of ending all conflict and then chosen to use it only for protection. None of them had shown that kind of strength through restraint. That was the true lesson of the dark matter fleet. Power without wisdom was destruction. Power with wisdom was salvation. Humanity had learned this truth early in their development, taught by centuries of war and suffering on their own small planet. They had carried that lesson to the stars and used it to save not just themselves, but everyone. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in cosmic history, that was a good thing.